welcome to the Thrive Today podcast. I'm Natalie Born, the media host for Thrive Today and the founder of Innovation Meets Leadership. We are a platform for women who lead and believe. And I'm so excited to have one of our beloved guests back, Dr. Brenda Chand. Brenda is not only a lifelong encourager, leader, and mentor, but she has a passion for helping people to grow, not only spiritually, but personally. She has co-founded Dreamer Releasers Coaching with her husband, Sam Chan. And she has spent years equipping leaders around the world with wisdom, with hope, and practical tools for life. Brenda lives in Atlanta with her husband and her family. Well, welcome to the podcast, Brenda.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today among the Thrive Today women, and been looking forward to it for a few weeks. So
Me
thank you
too.
for having me.
Absolutely. It's so great to have you back. And I love that we're going to talk about one of your articles today. You wrote this beautiful article in the Thrive Today journal, and you were talking about the idea of casting hope, not stones. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And we're going to also do it through the lens of what you do, which is coaching. And so I'd love to start out by talking a little bit about your story. In your article, you open up with a very emotional memory from childhood, growing up in a home that was filled with fear and instability. And I would love to talk a little bit about that story, but then also how you were able to hold on to hope through that story.
Sure. That truly is my very first memory in life. And I can remember it vividly even today. Waking up in our trailer in Michigan in the snow, probably a few feet deep on the ground, and not finding my mom there, which would be very, very rare for her not to be there, and asking my mom, my dad, where is mom? And they said, oh, she just took off. And I'm like, even in my young mind, knew that was not my mom's nature to take off. But I went outside looking for her, and I could see her headscarf was on the rail that was leading from the stairs. And I found out later that she didn't even have time to put on her shoes because my dad often would drink, and he would get violent, and he would start to abuse mostly her. Sometimes it was children too, but mostly her. And she ran off into the woods. And so that's my first memory that I could recall in life. And that happened over and over again in my lifetime. We would find ourselves fleeing. There would be a gun or a knife involved. And then pretty soon it was 5 children instead of 2 children. And in my very first memory, there was 2 of us, and now there's 5. And so my mom's running with 5 children. And there's another side to his story too, but that did happen, and those were the facts.
Yeah.
So that's the way I was raised. All the time afraid, afraid, afraid. It's like you think he's God or something, that he's present everywhere. Or, you're going to go down this street and you're going to find him there, and he's going to get you, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about kind of this idea of facing like not only just the hardship that happened, but then you kind of call it the monster of vulnerability that became a part of this. And I can imagine feeling very vulnerable as a kid, like very fearful about, finding yourself back in these situations over again.
Yes, yes. And the thing of it was that he had his monsters too. I mean, if I would have had his life, and my mom told me later in life, he was not capable of loving. Don't feel so bad at him. He actually left school when he was in 3rd grade during the Great Depression. He was raised during the Great Depression, and his father was in prison for bootlegging, and he had to go out and try to find food for his family. And so I know there were work camps that he worked in and things like that at a young age. So his monsters were even greater than mine.
Mhm.
So he has his stories too. So when you really think, I can't blame him a whole lot for the way things turned out in his life. But he was also had his good side.
Mhm. It's hard when you look back on, memories like this, you realize that a lot of times people can't give you what they don't have themselves. And so because of the situation your father was in, he didn't have a whole lot to give. just based on what he learned and what he'd personally been through. How did you figure out how to, give yourself more, if you will, than what you had? Because oftentimes if we don't learn, if we don't find a way to grow, if we don't find a way to work through it, we can only give what we've been shown.
Well, I think my biggest thing is I always had a wild imagination, and I was a dreamer. I was a dreamer, and I thought life could be better than this, and I thought that someday my prince would come and he would find something special in me, and he would just love me so much that other people would see that I was special. And actually, in a way, that did happen with my husband. So, uh, but anyway, I had my dreams, and so also, yeah, I coped with it by people in my life, people who told me, I was a good person, and I just had people that I could look at. I had God, although we didn't go to church a whole lot. He didn't like us going to church, so we didn't go a whole lot. But I was very God conscious,
Wow.
and but mostly it was my big dreams that got me through it, and
Yeah.
just knowing that there's got to be more to life, and life can be different.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I do think about the fact that you had your Prince Charming show up and sweep you away from that situation in some regard. When you think about the article, cast hope, not stones, I mean, it sounds like your imagination of the life that could be was part of the hope that you had, like a hope for a different future and a hope not to be in that situation. And sometimes it's that hope that carries us through to a different season, and believing that God does have something more for us. And I love that for anyone who may feel like they're in a situation right now that's not very hopeful, is to know that, it is okay to dream, and it is okay to imagine a life different than what you have today, even pray for a life different than what you have today.
Right. If we learn the word and we learn what God says about us, he loved us first. It wasn't that we loved him first. He loved us first, and he was determined for us to make it in life. He was determined for us to have that hope. And if we can just grab onto the hope that he offers, the Bible is just filled with hope. I was writing my dissertation, and I was going to find that one hope verse to exegete that would just have all the hope contained in the scriptures in one verse, and I couldn't, because that Bible is
Yeah.
completely full of hope verses. And I finally found one. I settled on one: "They that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength," and that really can be also read as "They that hope in the Lord shall renew their strength." So the Bible is just filled with hope, and I think that's our source right there. And if we know that God loves us so much, and he's so determined that we're going to make it, he's so determined that we're the head and not the tail,
Yeah.
we're the winner and not the loser, that we can take him at his word.
Wow. That's so good. I think about people who might be carrying shame from maybe a situation, maybe as even you were talking about your situation, they were thinking back to something that happened in their childhood, and they might be carrying shame, they might be carrying condemnation. What would you say were some of the ways that you were able to maybe confront some of these things in your life? Or what would you recommend if someone's dealing with that, how they can get to the other side and not be defined by their past?
Is it First of all, it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult because when you are ashamed all of your life and you come up with, you're just embarrassed. By the time I got to college, which was another story, I didn't go until I was 20. So I was in that environment until I was 20 years old, and went from Michigan to Atlanta, Georgia to go to Bible college. And I finally got into college and was out of that environment. It took me so long because you grow up with so much shame and so much embarrassment. And there's a difference when you have shame for something you do, or something that some circumstances around you, circumstantial, and you're ashamed of it. But when you're shamed to the core,
Mm.
when you're ashamed of who you are, you're ashamed of your very being. That is a hard thing to shake. And I was ashamed in that manner. Like always thinking something is wrong with me. I am rotten to the core. What made me this rotten?
Oh,
And you could make everything in the world your fault. Like I made 911 my fault because I wasn't praying enough for our country, you know.
yeah.
And I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm the lady in the football huddle that thinks they're, when the football players are in the huddle, they're thinking about you and it has nothing to do with you. And so you got to shake yourself and say, no, it has nothing to do with you. Just get out of that.
Mhm.
So it's a very hard thing to shake, but it is possible. And I got through it with God. I got through it with my husband. He even helped me to see my father's good sides, which,
Wow.
I didn't see the good sides for years, but there were good sides to him.
Wow.
Knowing how he was raised and all of that. So he helped me to see the good sides. So there is healing that has to take place. And there is a time for counseling. There's a time for counseling. And then I think there's a time for coaching, which is business that I'm in. And coaching is actually brief solution focused therapy. So it is therapy, but it's not counseling. It's not delving into your past. You do need to go through that. You do need to do that when you're shamed and when you feel shame. But there's a point where, and I got to a point in my life where I just had to say, so what? All of these things happened to you.
Yeah.
With all God had done for me and with all the healing I'd had. And I didn't have really any formal counseling or anything to come out of it. It's just time and people who loved me that pulled me through it. So, but even after I still had to come to a point. These things happened to me, and so what? And that's when I think it's a good time for coaching to come along, and then people can help you put action steps and know what you want to do, and you can really go for it at that time. And so I think a good counselor is also a good coach that can bring you up from where you are to a new point in your life.
Mhm. That's powerful. Just thinking about the differences of those, kind of as you're talking, the way I was thinking about it is, counseling is really empowering you over your past, and coaching is really kind of ushering you into your future, right? Empowering you over the future that is to come. And so I like that coaching is, it's forward looking. It's helping you look ahead and think ahead, and even transform some of the ways that we think about the challenges that we may be facing in the future. And I just want to do a quick plug for your book. You've got a couple books out there. Maybe we can show them real quick and just kind of talk about them for a second. So maybe talk about the first one that you have there in your hands.
Well, this is the one. I don't have the other one with me right now, but this is the one that we use for an actual textbook in our coaching program. It's the Professional Coaching Handbook, helping people take the next steps to success.
Wow.
And it's got a lot of coaching models in it. It includes our model of coaching for release your coaching. I can talk about that a little bit in just a moment. Virtually anything and everything you would want to know about coaching contained in this textbook.
Wow.
Uh, so we have that, and you can get it at dreamreleaser.com, probably through Amazon or whatever would be the way to get the actual book. And I think it's in Kindle and so on as well.
Okay. And yeah, like let me just say, if you want to be a coach or you're thinking about coaching, definitely check out dreamreleasers.com, because again, as we think about, the power of being able to be coached in a situation you're going through and something you're dealing with, or stepping into a new future, coaching is so powerful. And I even think back to a coach I had, and I remember she used to come visit me in my office, and I was on the 25th floor in this big high rise, and she said, "Natalie, you're in a glass prison." And I said, "What do you mean, Amy?" And she said, "You're in a glass prison." She's like, You've got this beautiful office on the 25th floor and you couldn't be any more miserable. Let's talk about that." And that was like our first coaching appointment, which was so fascinating because, coaches just have this discernment, this ability to ask great questions and really just pull out what you're really dreaming about, right? Not what you're told to dream about, which is being in a high rise on the 25th floor, but what are you really excited about? You're really excited about impacting people, transforming lives, making changes, and are you really doing that here? And so I just want to say that, as we talk about your story, there's this beauty in what you talked about around community, right? You had different people that came alongside of you and helped you dream for a different future and showed you a different future, probably talked you out of some of the ways that you talked to yourself or some of the ways that you thought. And to me, that's the beauty of a coach is they kind of help us get from here to there in our thinking and the way that we approach the world. And they help us to dream. Like the dreams are there, but sometimes we need someone to give us the permission to dream differently.
Yes. Our actual coaching model that we follow is assess, articulate, awareness, align, and advance. When we assess, that's when we're getting to know each other. We listen closely so we can hear. Well, first we're looking for hope in their story because nobody has 100% terrible life.
Mhm.
So we're assessing and listening to all the data that's coming at us as they're telling their story and they're articulating their story. So assess, articulating while we listen, and then awareness. When we're doing all of this, we listen for moments when they become totally aware of who they are, totally self aware. And we find out so many things that we never knew about ourselves through coaching by just answering those questions and the questions is for the coach not anything like 1, 2, 3. They are what comes to them by being a good investigator,
Mhm.
just following what the person is saying. Tell me more about that. How did you feel? Tell me about, you know, you've told me all these terrible things. Tell me something good that happened in your life. So
Mhm.
we're digging for the hope that we can build upon, and
Wow.
we're bonding with them at the same time. And then after they, we become aware of them, they become aware of themselves. Then we help them to align. Okay, they given you a few goals that they want, and they come back and they report to you what you're doing, and you make sure that they're aligning what they said it is they want with
Mhm.
what they're actually doing. I mean, for instance, it's a very simple example, but someone says they want to get out of debt, and then they come to you 2 or 3 weeks later and they say, "Oh, you should see my new car." And so you're like, "That's not what you said you wanted to do. You said you wanted to get out of debt." So it's very simplistic, but
Mhm.
help them align and then help them to advance through accountability. And so that's kind of what we do in coaching. And this is not a hard outline that we go by, it's a soft outline.
Mhm.
Go back and forth, back and forth. It's cyclic. You can keep going around the circle and just help people to advance. That's what coaching is all about.
Yeah, I love what you talked about with Align. I once heard somebody talking a little bit about kind of the power and the impact of coaching and having that person to hold you accountable and to almost hold up a mirror in some ways and say, hey, last week we did talk about getting out of debt and this week you are driving the brand new car.
Yes.
Let's talk about that lack of alignment. And it's interesting because what we don't realize is when we break our own promises with ourselves. So I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and then it's 7, a.m. and we haven't gotten out of bed yet. And I'm going to go work out. And then that whole week we don't go work out. When we do that, we're breaking all these promises with ourselves. And we're either saying it to someone or we might be saying it to ourselves. But either way, it creates this inconsistency in our behavior and in our life. And then others think, well, wow, they're saying one thing, but doing another. Can I really trust them? And deep down, we might even be saying, I'm saying one thing, but doing another. Can I even trust myself? And I think the beauty of a coach is it helps to bring that into alignment. It helps to hold up that mirror sometimes and say, hey, you're saying this, but you're doing this. And what that creates is a break of trust. And I love my leader told me this once. He said, hey, consistency over time equals trust. And I think when we can be consistent with our actions and our words, there's so much impact for people who are just watching that we don't even know are watching. And they're asking the question, does what they do and what they say align? And I think coaching helps you with that. It's that mirror. My coach told me once, Natalie, wherever you go, there you are. And it was just this thing of like, hey, you've got to decide if you're ready to change, because otherwise, wherever you go, there you are. And there's a beauty in coaching where it just helps you become the person that you're called to be, because you're stepping up to that higher realm.
Yes, and I think you said it there. You've got to have your mindset that you want to change. You can't keep going back and forth. It has to be, this is what I want to do. And the same with the shame thing. You've got to have your mind made up that you want to think differently, that you want to do differently.
Mhm.
Nobody can get you ready for that. Nobody can get you there except for you. It's your own mind shift.
Yeah.
One really important thing I wanted to talk about was when you are trying to make a change, when you do want to get out of some bad habits,
Mhm.
some bad thinking habits, especially, it's something that it's also found in the book. It's I forget whose material it is, but it is in the book,
Okay.
and they are given credit for it. It's changing our ants into pets, our
Mm.
automatic negative thoughts into positive enhancing thoughts. I think it's human nature to judge people, to be critical of people.
Mhm.
I think that's our sinful nature. It's also our human nature to want to do that. At least it is mine. I don't have a natural bent toward the positive. I try to. I've tried to change my mind many, many times, but it's easy to do when you start it.
Yeah.
When you start changing your ants into pets, your automatic negative thoughts into positive enhancing thoughts.
Yeah.
When you get critical of people, just stop yourself right then and there. Say, no, she is not like that. And I know she's not like that. She doesn't feel that way. So we stop that automatic negative thinking and change it to something positive. And I can tell you from my personal experience, it doesn't take 5 times of doing that to bring you out of a lot of that.
Mhm.
So it's a way that we can change ourselves.
Yeah. I wonder if we were to do a challenge and ask everybody to pay attention to what they say for a week, if people would be shocked at how negative they have been. We just had Shanti Feldhan on the podcast, and she encouraged us to do the 30-day kindness challenge. And my family and I have been doing it. And it's funny how much you just stop yourself from talking, because you're like, oh, that's not kind. Or I was about to make a comment about something and that's not kind. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna have to find different things to talk about, because you don't realize how often you say things that are unkind, or you think things that are not, thinking on what's lovely, what's kind, what's good. And so, if we're to do that, it not only transforms us, but it transforms the people around us. It transforms everything, right? And so I think that this is I really like that point that you made, because so often I think we just kind of don't inspect what we expect, right? So we don't inspect our words, but then it has an impact on our life, right? What we sow, we reap. So we have to be careful what we're sowing with our words. And so
Yes.
I love that you're bringing that up, because man, that is convicting. And I think it holds all of us to a different standard to say,
Mhm.
what are we speaking? What's coming out of our mouth?
And I think it's like celebrating with other people with their good news.
Mhm.
It's like how many people would celebrate you with you if you got a new house or you said, "Oh, I paid my mortgage off." Who do you know that you could call up and they would actually celebrate with you?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be saying, "Man, I wished I had my house paid off."
Yeah.
Of course, they would be thinking that too, but if they didn't have it paid off,
Yeah.
but to actually say, wow, I'm real happy for you. I'm really happy. And I was thinking of a homey example as we were about to go on the air that if you and I were standing together after today's podcast and somebody went up to you and say, "Oh, Natalie, you did such a great job hosting this podcast," and I'd be standing there thinking, wonder what they thought of me. Wonder what they thought of me. And we don't always need to be thinking about me. We just need to be celebrating other people's successes.
Wow. That's so good.
Yeah. Be happy for someone else.
Yeah. I love that quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And like, yeah, if we're so focused on ourselves, it's almost impossible to be happy or joyful for someone else because you're right. I think about Joyce Meyer when she does the what about me robot, right? Like, what about me? What about me? It's like sometimes we're so busy thinking about ourselves, we don't invest in celebrating other people and how beautiful. Not only does it feel to be celebrated, but it is to celebrate someone. And so I love that. What final thoughts would you have for us today as we close out our podcast segment?
I'm just thinking of the whole coaching realm and how that brings you somewhere really quickly.
Mhm.
Um, I spent all of those years in deep, deep shame, trying to pull myself out of it, pull myself up by the bootstraps.
Mhm.
And all I needed was a few questions to say, "Hey, what do you really want to do with your life? What's next for your life?" And turning those ants into pets and just doing some, you know, mind shifting,
Mhm.
mind shifting, shifting of the mind to something very positive instead of thinking on myself and my troubles. And yeah, I think, the coaching aspect of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's I can speak for that too. It is so powerful. And so what I want to tell people is that they can find you at dreamerleasers.com. They can find your book, You Can Coach, and then also the handbook that you shared with us, which was called the Professional Coaching Handbook. Both of these are by Dr. Brenda Chand. Check these out as you think about your coaching journey, whether you're looking to become a coach one day or you're looking to be coached. I think these resources get you on the journey to thinking differently and thinking bigger about the life that God has for you. And so Dr. Brenda Chand, it's been such a joy and a pleasure to have you with us. I hope you'll come back again and join us soon. People love having you on because you are so authentic and you're so motherly and kind with your advice. And so you don't beat us over the head. You lead us with kindness to the place where we need to drink. So thank you for joining us. This is such a pleasure to have you as always.
Oh, you are so kind. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm getting to be that age where I'm like everybody's mother. And I used to like, nah, I'm too young for that. But now I embrace it. And yeah, you are everybody's mother. I rather enjoy it. So thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you. Well, if you haven't had a chance to step into community, let me ask you a question. What are you waiting for? Head over to thrivetoday.com to learn more about our community. So many resources right there at your fingertips. Thrivetoday.com. Ladies, we'll see you next time. Don't forget to thrive.